What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros, the fantasy football podcast. I'm Chris Welsh, and today we're talking about late round draft steals, or also known as sleepers. Which sleepers do you want to target? Well, we don't have you on the show. We've got two amazing people on the show, which we're going to get their sleepers, but you guys can obviously comment on it. We've got my brother from another mother, Scott Bogman, on the show for his sleepers, and my newest brother, bald-headed, beautiful. I'm just around so many just wonderful, bald-headed, great beard guys. John Daigle, not Daigle, which I like, not J Daigle. I got the Is It the Welsh? We got the nice handles from Establish the Run. John, how are you?
Doing well, and the frequent listeners of the Fantasy Pros pod are probably familiar with me overlapping with Debro, Andrew Erickson, Pisapia. The list goes on. But I have not yet to record with either of you, so very excited for today's show.
So it's going to be pretty great. Boggs, you got the beautiful flow going. We are representing a little bit of hair. Are you ready for some sleeper talk? Because that always creates this really goofy, odd question that didn't exist 10 years ago, by the way, because we could easily just be like, hey, these are sleepers. But nowadays, the term sleeper has really kind of evolved. And unfortunately, it comes with an eye roll, because what is a sleeper anymore? Because there's a million of us writing articles. Every player gets covered. But in just a, quick little sample size piece, how are you defining sleepers nowadays?
Yeah, I think sleepers, and, I had Jake Seeley, who has been on here as well. By the way, I can't believe they let ITL do the whole flagship by yourselves here. Look at us. But the definition of a sleeper that Jake said, it's like archaic. Everyone knows sleeper was a term that you used when everybody showed up at the bar to draft and they grabbed a magazine off the shelf and they went to the back of the book and there was a list of sleepers. Like, that is what sleepers was way back in the day for the people that didn't prepare properly, right? Now we're looking more at value. The word sleepers is a good term. People like to click on it, hear what your opinions are, that kind of stuff. But it's really about value. Who are the valuable guys that you can take late that may be in a position to gain you way more than their draft cost? That's what we're looking for.
So, John, one of the ways we're also titling this and we're looking at this is late round draft steals. Do you think late round draft steals is the definition or a primary definition of a sleeper, or do you think sleeper is much more wide ranging in how you can approach it?
There are certainly ADP values in players just naturally dropping in every single draft. But really, I consider sleepers nowadays, especially in home leagues, to simply be players that no one has seen play yet. So it takes a little bit of guesswork, but rookies are the players that typically just fall through the cracks. And we're going to talk about quite a few today, but that's really because everyone in home leagues particularly gravitates to what they've seen. Even if what they've seen is not good, it's at least better than what they haven't seen. And so that's why we can usually stash rookies in typical 15-round drafts and then just have them on the back of our benches. I think that's really the way to attack quote-unquote sleepers nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting term. I actually think in finishing this, that sleeper is almost kind of evolved into maybe a couple things, because I think your definition, John, of players that we haven't seen, we don't really know anything about, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think there's this element, and maybe there's a numerical factor to it, where a sleeper can still be a guy that is relatively mid-round drafted, but it is that the equity of what their return can be is so much higher than where they're going that we are sleeping on this player. But again, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Whether you call these sleepers, whether you call these late-round draft steals, these are players who could potentially win your leagues at lower cost than what they're going to return. You might not need to spend big. You just got to draft smart. So that is what we have got covered for you today with John and Bogman. So let's just jump right into this bad boy. We're going to be doing some positional wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end, and then we are going to have some late targets as well as a super flex quarterback that both of these guys are going to jump into. So let's start with wide receiver. These are relatively outside the top 100 overall ECR rank. So if you guys want to check out our expert consensus ranks, go to fantasypros.com/rankings. You can check out what the ECR with the grouping of everybody is, or you can individually look. I think a really cool tool is you can click on a player and you can see all the wide range ranks. Who has them at the top? Who has them at the bottom? What is that medium? You can go through and look, but what we are doing is we are going to be identifying these as like outside the top 100 relatively overall of the overall ranks and half PPR. So John, we are going to start with you. Your number one late round draft steal, your target is who?
I am beginning with Josh Downs. We can start with wide receivers, correct?
Yes, wide receivers.
Just
Yeah, if
want
I
to
didn't
make
say
sure,
that, wide
yes.
receivers.
I am beginning with Josh Downs, who has now been in the league for 2 years, and in his rookie year was outperformed quite significantly, actually, by Michael Pittman. But that's because Josh Downs, I feel like, was just gaining his footing as a primary slot receiver. But then you go back to last year, and he was the outright better player than Pittman in his second season of development, which makes a lot of sense. Whenever Michael Pittman and Josh Downs shared the field with each other last year for 253 routes, it was actually Downs who led the team in target share at 32%. And so now if we're talking about a completely different quarterback who you can say what you want about Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe he's the type of player who's always just naturally going to be a gadget guy and get peppered near the line of scrimmage. But the fact is Daniel Jones still fed him heavily the last couple of seasons from the slot where Josh Downs plays. And so I do like Downs to be the more successful wideout for Indianapolis, regardless of who's under center, but perhaps getting a slight bump even more so with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and I believe he, of all the Colts wide receivers, I mean, one of the problems could just at the end of the day be there's just a lot of guys. It's very Packers-like, there's like 4 different targets, and you also got a tight end in there, and you got a very heavily involved running back where you kind of maybe can start to put in questions. But like Josh Downs, I believe, led all of those wide receivers in yards per route run at like a relatively elite level as well. And running him out of the slot, just a great primary target that I think Daniel Jones is probably going to look at a little bit more. And if Richardson obviously gets healthy, and we start to get some of those like early check down stuff, like Downs has a really high potential to be like this year's JSN. But any things you want to throw in there, Boggs, on Josh Downs? Do you think he's a really great late round draft steal?
Of course, yeah. I love Josh Downs. I think he's a great talent. But the problem with the Colts offense is who is throwing the ball. If it is Daniel Jones, I love this comparison to Wan'Dale Robinson. If it's Anthony Richardson, I think it's great to kind of do what Tua did last year, right? Those short dump-off throws. Get the ball out quick. Build the confidence. You're going to work from the inside out with a player that is having issues with accuracy. So I do think that no matter who is behind center for Indianapolis, that Josh Downs will lead in targets.
Yeah, and I think that the floor of like him going late is what is so enticing as well, because like, yes, if Anthony Richardson is throwing 19 times per game, like we're in trouble here, but there's a lot of potential growth spots in who is the quarterback and how he can thrive. So I think it's like there's a great floor with a high ceiling. Sticking with wide receivers, Bogman, your first sleeper late round draft target at wide receiver makes me very happy. So let us know.
Let's talk about your boy Ricky Pearsall, right? Currently ECR wide receiver 45. I have him closer to 37, so more of a value on him. But let's just look at these games that he started, right? He started one game against Dallas. He had 4 targets, 4 catches for 38 yards, and a big rush for 39 yards. So nice game there and only 5 touches. Then against Tampa Bay as a starter, 4 for 73 and a score on 6 targets. Against Detroit, this was his huge game where he had 8 catches for 141 yards and a score, a couple rushes in there, 10 targets. And against the Cardinals, 6 for 69 and 1. We have Ayuk coming off a major injury back. Same deal for Christian McCaffrey. Yes, these guys are going to absorb a lot of the targets that were missing last season, but I think Ricky Pearsall has huge potential in this offense. Is Brandon Ayuk the same? Can CMC last a long time this season? I'm not sure about that at all. I think Ricky Pearsall right now is better than Juwan Jennings, and I really like Juwan Jennings. I think this offense is kind of like the Colts, but with a good quarterback, right? We know Kittle's going to get his catches. We know CMC is good. The offensive line is better. Like, this is a complete offense, and you drop a guy like Ricky Pearsall with his skill set in it, with a guy like Brock Purdy and all the weapons surrounding him, he's going to be in for some enormous games. He may not perform week to week, but I know those big boom weeks are going to come for Ricky Pearsall.
I'm a big Jauan Jennings guy. I think Jauan Jennings is going to surprise. I think he can be the number one and will be the number one in this offense this year. But what is so interesting about Ricky Pearsall is he's in this large ACR grouping of wide receivers where there are these higher upside plays paired with these like floor guys. And based on where you can be in your draft, it's pretty beneficial to take a shot on a guy that's got this huge ceiling, because Ricky Pearsall is probably undoubtedly in the receiving game maybe the biggest play option with the San Francisco 49ers. So if things work out, he can be a 4-catch guy that still puts up, top 2 wide receiver returns on a weekly basis. John, what do you think about Jauan Jennings versus Ricky Pearsall? Ricky Pearsall's value, Brandon Ayuk is thrown in there. Do you think he's a good late round steal that people should be targeting?
I think everyone should be drafting all the 49ers. And to give everyone a peek behind the scenes, I actually went into our notes to write down my players I wanted to discuss on today's show, and I had saw that Boggs already wrote down Ricky Pearsall. So he beat me to it. Every year we come into fantasy football, and I'm the season-long home league specialist at ETR, so I've already been looking at tiers and ADP and drafts for the past couple of months now, and you can always tell that ADP is based on last year's results, and remember, we don't get last year's points unless you're in a last year league, and if you are, please invite me. I would love to be in that league. And so everyone's already down on the 49ers, and their ADPs are dipped across the board, when it's as simple as explaining to everyone that the iteration they'll have on the field this year, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, they only played 10% of San Francisco's plays last year together. They just weren't all available at the same time. And with Deebo Samuel off the field, we saw Jauan Jennings soak up a ridiculous 41% target share. In those last 2 games that Boggs mentioned that both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo did not play, Ricky Pearsall registered 8 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown, and those 6 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. And we believe that when Pearsall was drafted in the first round as a explosive yards after the catch guy, that he was the player who could do what Deebo Samuel does. Deebo's a 1-of-1, but Pearsall comes closest for this team. And so we're talking about touches that will also be happening behind the line of scrimmage as running backs at times. So between Christian McCaffrey inevitably falling to 112 in everyone's home league, George Kittle going 2 rounds later than Brock Bowers, despite finishing as the overall tight end 1 in points per game last year, and Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, the moral of the story is that everyone should just get higher on every 49er.
And I love the point that you made there about him getting these rush attempts, because he started 4 games. He had 3 rush attempts there, and those are not designed for him. They're going to be designed for him this season. So, yeah, just get the ball in this guy's hands. He's excellent.
I knew I liked John. I like John a lot. All right, let's go to our second of the wide receiver late target sleepers that we're looking at. And I don't know, you tell me, John. A little bit of a cheat here. We got a couple names in here, but I'm down with it. I'm going to roll with it. Who do you have as your second, maybe even possibly third of these late round wide receivers?
I wanted to highlight 2 players because I think they'll be going later than the top 100, 150, 175 of home leagues. I think you're probably going to get them in the last couple of rounds. But just in case everyone is now viewing these 2 individuals as their sleepers, I do want to be ahead of one, Tre Harris, who I'm just going to read quickly Tre Harris's game logs in his final year last season in college before he got injured, because he had 8 catches for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns, 9 for 130, 10 catches for 94 yards, 11 for 225 and 2 touchdowns, 11 for 176 and a touchdown, 3 for 81, 7 for 100 and a touchdown, and then his final game before he was injured, 1 catch for 43 yards and a touchdown. All he did was scorch the earth when he played. Not only that, but last year he led this class in yards per route run against man coverage.
By so much.
Which may not mean much to a lot of people, but to me, I look at it and say that means when left to himself, he can get open regardless if he's schemed one-on-one or not. So I love Tre Harris to emerge as the second receiver ahead of Quentin Johnson in the second half of the season for the Chargers. And then my next guy is the Patriots' Kyle Williams, who got the draft capital at a nice number 69 overall selection, but more importantly, whereas Demario Douglas and Stephon Diggs led their teams in slot rate when they were available last year. Diggs with the Texans, of course. Kyle Williams, where he plays, is from out wide. A career 81% of his routes from the boundary in college. Also breaking out early with a 22% target share at only 19 years old. So I believe that he's a player that can also fit seamlessly around Douglas and Stephon Diggs with Drake Maye, who we'll probably talk about in a bit, but is the Jaden Daniels obvious breakout of 2025.
I really love the Tre Harris one here. Boggs, you kind of jumped in there. Do you want to throw, if you had to pick one that you're going to, put a stamp on, Tre Harris or Kyle Williams, which one would you go of John's picks?
That to me. Okay, I'll say this. PPR, I'm going Kyle Williams. Half point. Give me Tre Harris.
I like that. I like that call a lot.
Yeah, because I think that Kyle Williams has a chance to lead the Patriots, especially if Diggs is hurt or has to start on the pup or however long it's going to be for Diggs. If there is an issue to start the season for him, I think Kyle Williams has a chance to lead this team in targets. Now, we thought that about Jaylen Polk last year. It just didn't work out right. Javon Baker, like those rookies just did not pan out for them. So, yes, we could be going in again with something like that with Kyle Williams, but I think Kyle Williams I think he should be playing the slot, but he's good enough to play outside. I think he can do both. But I just love the pairing of a guy like Tre Harris, who put up all those numbers as a downfield threat with a guy that Jackson Dart, a lot of people considered not a good downfield thrower of the football, and Justin Herbert is one of the best in the league. That is such a good pairing. I'm just so excited to watch it happen.
All right, Boggs, you are kind of staying in the same vein. You have got a rookie wide receiver for your final and second of the targeted sleepers or late round draft steals at wide receiver. So let's hear it.
We're going to keep on brand here, right? Let's go with Matthew Golden, my wide receiver out of Texas here. And look, the Packers situation, it's just, look, Watson is out for the season with a knee injury. Jaden Reed had under 60% snap share in 6 of the final 9 games. I don't know why they don't like him more or kept taking him off the field. Romeo Doubs is concussion prone and was kind of a crybaby. This is always going to be a run the ball first team here. But spending a first-round pick tells me they desperately want to help Jordan Love by surrounding him with elite-level talent. It's a complete, the first-round pick stuff and draft capital, that is a complete crutch argument, and I understand it. But this is our first-round wide receiver since 2002 in Javon Walker. And we saw Matthew Golden come in from Houston, and this is the whole thing that Pat talks about in Dynasty, why he doesn't like Matthew Golden is because he wasn't that good at Houston. He transfers to Texas, but to me, it's like, okay, well, he transfers to Texas to maybe make the team and ends up leading the team in targets by 24 targets over any other wide receiver at the University of Texas, 10 more than Gunnar Helm, who was also drafted, and had the huge production in the biggest moments of Texas season in the playoff in particular. So I think Matthew Golden is a ready-to-rock wide receiver. He's good to go. And he's still growing. There's meat on the bone for him to learn a little bit as he goes as well. So I'm just super excited for him. And currently his ECR is post 100. I think ADP is bumping right up against 100. But he's a guy that you should have on your radar no matter what. He's going as a wide receiver 5 right now.
What I think is really interesting about him is the Packers implement so much of that like wide receiver rotational stuff where it's like, all right, here's 5 plays where it's just these 2 guys. And then bam, now here's these 2 guys. So it's like you can have your set run of plays, but he's in an interesting grouping of like Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden. I mean, we talked about Tre Harris. Like he's going above all of those guys in what is a little bit of I still would view it maybe as a messy situation. But John, what do you think? Like Golden over that crew of players? Are you a buy on that?
I'm going to be taking multiple shots in home leagues on all of the Packers wide receivers just because it's an ambiguous situation and we don't know. And it's one we probably want to get right considering they average 6 more pass attempts per game and the starts that Jordan Love was under center. I think it does bode well for Golden that his route tree best fits filling in for Christian Watson, who at this point we can probably chalk up to miss the entire season. But again, it's completely ambiguous. So I'll be drafting a lot of these guys.
All right, we've got running backs coming up, some sleeper running backs. But first, let's talk about our friends over at DraftKings. Nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. Baseball's behind me. I'm going to agree and think that. And the simplest way that you can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. You just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes, no gimmicks, no weird rules, just ball. Nail your picks and start heating up. Pick 6 brings upside with payouts of up to 500 times. And Pick 6 is live in a ton of states, Texas, California, Georgia, Missouri, and a ton more. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can take advantage of a special sign-up offer. Yes, FantasyPros is the code. Pick 6 from DraftKings is the most fun way to play fantasy sports, so download DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use that code FantasyPros. FantasyPros for new customers will get you a new sign-up offer, better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Running backs. Late round draft steal running backs. I see some popular names in here. I see some bigger ones. This is going to be a good conversation. John, why don't we have you kick it off here? Your running back, I think, is probably near the tippy top of the sleeper ranks we do. Cool thing on Fantasy Pros, when you're in the draft wizard, you're getting in your drafts and stuff. At the end, you get a report card. We also have that listed, but it'll say, hey, this player ranks as, whatever, as a sleeper. Well, your running back is a very popular name, and for all the right reasons, I believe, as well. So, John, your running back sleeper is who?
My favorite running back sleeper in home leagues this year is definitely Jordan Mason. Let's start with what the Vikings did to acquire him, because they quietly only had 6 picks in this past year's draft, and even so still sent a 4th rounder to acquire Mason and then gave him $7 million guaranteed on a new 2-year deal the moment he landed in Minnesota. Not to mention what our friend Warren Sharp has mentioned, that Aaron Jones was the league's worst running back at the goal line last year. Inside the 5, Aaron Jones had 13 carries for -2 yards and a fumble. So you don't have to squint to see Jordan Mason's short yardage role already capping Aaron Jones' ceiling. But more importantly, not only can he lead this team in rushing touchdowns because of that, but Aaron Jones from the outside in is facing similar to what Raheem Mostert faced in 2023 as an outlier season that we should probably be behind on and instead fading Jones, because Jones is coming off a career high 306 touches, the first time he's had 300 touches in his entire career, and even so a career low in yards per touch. It was an outlier performance for Jones last year, and now they've added significant competition. So Mason's floor, in my opinion, is the short yardage touchdown back and mixing in with Jones. His ceiling, however, is just overthrowing Aaron Jones altogether. And so I'm definitely going to have Jordan Mason in every single home league this year.
Yeah, and obviously with the 49ers, but, we saw him in all games of 20 or more carries. He averaged over 100 yards, over 5 yards per carry, very efficient running back. And, you make an interesting point when you talk about it's the old, I'll pay you tomorrow for a burger today. You don't want to pay too heavy for last year's stats into this year, and you want to try to get in front of it. And these are the type of players that it's also it's a poker equation. There's a percentage. It's just the right reason to maybe get your chips in here. Boggs, what do you think about Jordan Mason as a heavy late round target?
I think it's such a good call, because we know that the Kevin O'Connell offense is going to be pass heavy, and it still was last season, but they ran more than ever because they had a first-time starter in this offense in Sam Darnold, and he was still QB9, right? So there's still enough production to go around with all of the wide receivers and TJ Hawkinson and everybody, even though they're going to run the ball more because it's going to be McCarthy's first year starting, right? Then I think what gives him the confidence to run the ball more is Aaron Jones coming off a career high in touches last season. But I'm with John. I've been saying this on the Dynasty Pod, specifically about Aaron Jones' Dynasty value, is because I have him in the 40s on my Dynasty rankings. I think he's got 1 year left. He was bad, career high touches. He's been injury prone in his career, and they just traded for Jordan Mason and paid him a bunch of money. I think that Jordan Mason is the way to go here. Or next year they're going to spend a high draft pick on a running back to just sweep this out and fix the problem. So,
and if you want Aaron Jones to potentially work, it's maybe just give him a short amount of usage so he can be efficient in that instead of volume.
Cut
and that would
his
make
touches
sense.
back to keep him healthy
Yeah,
and more efficient.
Yeah,
Right.
So 15 plus touches for Jordan Mason is going to put you probably in a pretty good spot where even the spot that he's being drafted is just an absolute floor. You guys are just completely placating to me here because you're sticking with 49ers, or at least even former ones, and this is the guy why the 49ers were comfortable trading Jordan Mason. Boggs, you're going with Isaac Guerendo as your sleeper running back, and I can let me take a guess.
Oh.
Christian McCaffrey won't be healthy. Is that our sell?
Okay, well, I'll say one of two things is going to be true for the Niners. Either they're going to give Christian McCaffrey way too many carries again and not take him off the field, and he gets hurt again. Remember, this is bilateral Achilles tendonitis. It's not going away. Or they are going to have to ratchet back his touches for real and not just give us lip service this year. And if that's the case, then Isaac Guerendo has a week-to-week basis. But either way, it's either going to be Isaac Guerendo as a handcuff if you're drafting Christian McCaffrey, or Isaac Guerendo is in here getting a decent amount of touches because we want to keep Christian McCaffrey healthy. We know that he's going to get injured if we give him too many touches. It just has happened too often. So I think that regardless of the situation or how we get there, that the Guerendo is going to see significant touches for the Niners this year. I think selfishly, I would rather draft Christian McCaffrey and have him get all of the carries, and then if he gets banged up, then I can throw Guerendo in there, and he gets all the touches or most of them. I know Jordan James is a nice draft pick out of Oregon too, and Guerendo isn't completely and wholly out of his shadow either. I think Jordan James versus Guerendo is much closer than anybody against Christian McCaffrey, but I think the Niners know this season we have to ratchet back touches for Christian McCaffrey if we want him to be healthy, specifically for the playoffs. So many injuries last year. The Niners should be on a good run this year. They should be pushing for a playoff spot. Keep McCaffrey healthy. Give Guerendo the ball. I think it makes sense one way or the other that Guerendo is going to end up with about 100 carries and however many catches.
I think it's the number one handcuff. He's the number one handcuff out there if you could take Christian McCaffrey. You can't, what I'm about to tell you, you can't take for surface value because there isn't a McCaffrey necessarily in here. But Isaac Guerendo had 10-plus touches in 5 games last year. And in 4 of those games, in half PPR, he was a top 24 running back. 10 touches, and he can catch out of the backfield. We know he can, big burst, kind of like a remake of what they used with like Raheem Mostert. But I think the best value is in that you're handcuffing McCaffrey, but there's even some potential, even in short usage, if they were to ratchet back a little bit and give him some targets, it could be efficient. What do you think, John? Do you think he's an ultimate targeted steal? Do you think he's the ultimate handcuff? What do you think about this pick?
I've heard both arguments. I'm in the camp that Kyle Shanahan does not care about keeping his players healthy. He's going to run them into the ground, as he's historically shown us. I get both sides, but even in the 2 games, Christian McCaffrey, who again came back injured and played with Brock Purdy last year, he out-touched Jordan Mason 42-3. Kyle Shanahan just genuinely did not care. It is ridiculous, but that's who Kyle Shanahan is. He does a lot of things good, but also he's very bad at some things, and handling injury management, this goes back to Elijah Mitchell as well, he's always been terrible at it. So I am not on that side, but that's okay. I get the argument. Having said that, you could make a better case for Guerendo because remember, he kneeled twice on what would have been game-winning touchdowns. He got the first down and then kneeled instead of running for 50-yard burst. Like, he understood the assignment, unlike Devon Achane, who, remember, against the Niners in Week 15, I think it was, gets the first down with a minute and a half left, and his eyes just get bigger because he sees the goal line, and he just goes upfield for a 50-yard score. Did not care about kneeling into the game whatsoever. So, Guerendo, we know, coming out of college, and the way he tested was shot out of a cannon. He was a walking 10-yard play. He's incredible. And because of that, when I keep a running column called the One Injury Away List, similar to your handcuff rankings. And when I open mine, Guerendo will be the number 1 overall contingency value to keep behind Christian McCaffrey for sure, because he's just good at the game. But I personally question how many touches he'll actually receive weekly.
I probably echo that exactly. Like, I'm a pretty firm, like, Christian McCaffrey guy. If you're drafting him and you don't draft Guerendo, like, I kind of also don't know what you're doing, but like, we all clearly know the path for Guerendo. And I think it is built around McCaffrey not being on the field, not them being smart about it, because when has Kyle Shanahan been smart, like, whatsoever? John, number 2 on your running back sleepers. I really like this because I feel like, as a network, we've talked a lot about the starter on this team, and we haven't maybe talked enough about this guy. So your sleeper running back, late round target, is a Seahawks running back not named Ken Walker.
Zach Charbonnet is where the term sleeper gets convoluted to me because he's probably going to be a mid-round back. He's not going to go as late, in my opinion, as Jordan Mason. Could be wrong there. But the point I want to make is that Zach Charbonnet is just really good at football. You have to go back to when he was recruited initially coming out of high school, but a 5-star recruit. Jim Harbaugh's among that class highest recruit at Michigan, and he only left to play under Chip Kelly at UCLA eventually because he was in a committee in Michigan. But still a very, very touted and highly coveted player. Gets 3 starts for Kenneth Walker as a rookie and does not do well, but zooming out, it was against the Cowboys, Niners, and Rams in 2023, which at the time were 3 of the best run defenses in the entire league. So the moment he got under center for Ken Walker last year in his 6th start, we should have been higher and expected a better outcome. And that's exactly what happened. He earned a double-digit target share in those 6 starts, was one of only 2 running backs alongside Bijan Robinson to have a route participation over 60%. He handled every carry inside the 5-yard line in those 6 games for Seattle, and he had a higher rate of 15-yard runs. He was more explosive than Ken Walker had in his respective starts. Most likely, like if we're betting on probabilities, Ken Walker's going to lead this team in touches. But I will say the aggressive nature and how he runs, he's proven that he can't stay healthy. He's averaging 3 missed games per year. But more importantly, there is a wider range of outcomes, and Charbonnet is very good. So again, Walker probably leads this team in touches in the backfield, but Charbonnet could mix in or maybe out-touch Walker. And so I'll cross my fingers that happens for a mid-round running back.
Boggs, you're a pretty known Ken Walker guy. Do you think in the later round targets, is Zach Charbonnet someone that you want to invest in?
Zach Charbonnet is good enough to push Ken Walker for touches. And I've always liked Zach Charbonnet, but I've always been an enormous Ken Walker stan. So I didn't think that was really the case, but John just pointed it out, right? Like Charbonnet a little more efficient, fewer touches, all of that, but fresher legs. But Ken Walker has been injury prone, and this is a team that should shift to run the ball way more with the improvements to the offensive line, and you lose your deep threat in DK Metcalf. You're placing with Cooper Kupp and MVS. I don't know what that's going to look like with Sam Darnold. We know JSN is going to get a lot of touches. We know Walker's going to get a lot of carries, but this offense is going to look fairly different than it did last season. So I think investing in Charbonnet is a very smart move.
Boggs, you get to finish it off here, and you've got a nice deeper name. There's a little bit of a convoluted maybe backfield outside of the starter and who is the guy that is going to kind of shine. This is ECR 50 running back. So a nice deep name for your final running back target. Let's hear it.
Yeah, it's Jaylen Wright from the Miami Dolphins. And Mostert is gone. He leaves 108 touches from 2024. Wright already had 71 last year. Now, the Dolphins did sign Alexander Mattison, who's coming off his lowest yards per carry and yards after contact. They drafted Ollie Gordon, who just did not look like the same player in 2024 as he was in 2023 at Oklahoma State. He was, he would have been one of the top running backs off the board if he had come out in 2024. But he stayed, did not look like the same dude. So they're kind of drafting and hoping. But Jonnu Smith is going to open up a lot of short dump-off passes in this Dolphins offense. He had 111 targets last season, second behind only Miami. Wright wasn't involved in the passing game a ton, but in college he caught 30 of 34 targets. He can do it. He's super explosive and super fast. He fits this system a lot, and this is one of those one injury away guys, I feel like, although there is more competition for him. But, John, I feel like Jaylen Wright is a dude that could burst onto the scene if anything happens to Achane, and he should have a fair amount of touches even without Achane being banged up because he's not a 30-touch guy ever.
What do you think, John, about Jaylen Wright?
Definitely will be high on my contingency list just in case Devon Achane was injured. And similar to Isaac Guerendo, Jaylen Wright coming out of college was also a walking explosive play waiting to happen. Never got on the field since Devon Achane pretty much stuck around, and Wright had to compete with Raheem Mostert last year, but Mostert's no longer around. We instead have day 3 Ollie Gordon behind him, and so I would imagine Wright at least gets the first crack at that direct backup spot if Achane were to go down.
Yeah, they moved to the like a weird run heavier system. The thing I guess I would worry about is if HN was gone, that they then spread it out even more, and that's what could potentially take it away. But the one injury away makes it super fascinating, and the equity is really low. So those are John and Bogman's picks at running back. Let's go move to tight end. It's messy. If you don't take the top guys, it's messy, but there's still tons of names to pick from. So, John, we're going to start with you. Your late round target, which is kind of a pretty popular way to approach tight end if you miss out on the top guys. Who's your pick for sleeper/late round target at tight end?
And I want to be clear with everyone. I genuinely believe everyone from Sam Laporta, tight end 4, to Hunter Henry, tight end 24, 25, I think they're all the same player. So you can just wait and have this player.
Amen.
Like Sam Laporta was unusable for half a season. Kyle Pitts was one of the best tight ends in the league for a whole month in October. Mark Andrews, you could have dropped in the first month of the year and no one would have picked him up because he was terrible. All these guys are so volatile and pretty much had the same outcome, except they performed well and performed terribly in different windows. That's all it was. And so I hate all of them. But if you tell me to pick one, I'm going to go back to the same thing we talked about earlier and this ambiguous target tree with Green Bay and say at the very least Tucker Kraft was good when he played last year. And the 204 plays he was on the field with Jordan Love and without Christian Watson, since that's the iteration we believe is going to be happening for the 2025 Packers, only Dontayvion Wicks had a higher target share than Tucker Kraft's 21%. And in that time, Kraft was the tight end 11 in points per game. He's part of this ambiguous equation we're trying to solve. Luke Musgrave, as they've shown, is no longer an option considering, one, they had practically the same draft capital coming out a couple years ago, but Tucker Kraft has very clearly overthrown him and been a very good option that I comp to Jeremy Shockey now. So I like Tucker Kraft and Jake Ferguson. Those are kind of my two guys if you're waiting for the later rounds for a tight end.
Okay, so before I get to you, Boggs, I want to do like a follow-up thing real quick because it's interesting what you said because I agree with you. It's like the top guys and then it's just like 15 guys that are just like different variants of each other in the Marvel Universe. If you are looking at that and that's your approach and you're going to take one of the late tight ends, like a lot of people do with quarterback when you miss out, where you'll take – whatever the upside, Caleb Williams, and then you go, but I can take Caleb Williams, I'm going to pair him with like a Jared Goff, or I'm going to pair him with a Brock Purdy because I got that comfort. Do you feel more inclined, if you're in this position, to take Kraft and Ferguson together, knowing that there's not a lot of sustainability and you try to mix and match during the season? Or do you think because there's so many variants of each other that you're just going to be like, you know what, even if it's tight end 18 or 19 on the wire, I'll just pick up that guy? What are you more likely to do? Take one and then just be quick to cast off, or take two and try to balance them out like some people do with quarterback?
I'm going to take one and focus putting my work into streaming. I absolutely hate taking two tight ends in home leagues and season-long leagues. To me, there's no point in it. It's one volatile onesie starting position. Thus, I can always address it simply by the starter. I do not want to waste that roster spot on a second tight end when I could have, like Boggs is saying, Jaylen Wright, Isaac Guerendo, actual league-winning picks if the dominoes were to fall correctly for them. It takes so much more for the dominoes to fall correctly for a tight end, and then they're just completely unusable.
And there's always a Chig Okonkwo or a Brendan Strange for you to play around with if you miss out on those guys. So what do you think about Tucker Kraft, though, as the pick here, Boggs?
I love that pick. I mean, I've said this, from the jump. It's like the top three. I put another group of like old guys like, Kelsey and, who am I thinking of? I put Tucker Kraft in that group too, of like the next group, and then it's just everybody else at tight end, and I think Tucker Kraft's a very good call-out. Very good player. I thought Luke Musgrave was going to be better than him coming out. I'll say that, and Tucker Kraft has just been a much, much better tight end.
Well, you're going on the young side. You've been a little bit of a tight end whisperer. There was almost nobody. You and Fitzy were probably the absolute loudest last year about Brock Bowers. Boggs, you've had a little tight end whisper in you, and you seem to be kind of going back to it, though. You're not stomping at taking these tight ends super high. You are picking a rookie tight end as your late round target. So let's hear which one.
Well, look, it is the shiny new toy thing, but just like John said, from 4 to 24, if they're all the same guy, then give me the guy I haven't seen. Maybe he has a little more upside. than some of these other dudes, and that's Colston Loveland. And he dealt with injuries from the jump at Michigan last season. They had a historically bad QB room, and he still had 82 targets, 56 catches, 582 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The next 2 highest in targets for the 2024 Michigan Wolverines was Tahj Morgan with 37 and Tyler Morris with 37. Yes, there is competition for targets at every position and his, including Cole Kmet with the Bears offense. But it's 100% a crutch argument to say, again, that Colston Loveland was a top 10 overall pick and therefore will get usage because there's a guy like Cole Kmet in front of him. But it's also kind of true. I mean, I think a guy like Ben Johnson, who's, had Laporta for 2 seasons and given him the output of 203 targets, 146 catches, 1,616 yards, and 17 touchdowns, is a pretty good starting point for any tight end in their career. So, he's a guy that could finish as a high-end tight end 1 in that group of 3 that we talk about, but he has to see the targets and he has to earn them. He has to push Cole Kmet out, and he has to beat, Odunze and Luther Burden and all those guys. That's why I wouldn't smash the table for him like I did Brock Bowers. If he had ended up in that Brock Bowers situation, I would be way higher on him. But it's a situation that scares people off, but give me the talent.
Whereas I'm already horrified by Luther Burden in year 1 because the biggest red flag is a rookie who gets injured and then basically just can't get reps during the offseason. And so far, that's what happened at minicamp with him not being available at all. The Bears drafted Colston Loveland in the first round, understanding he was already injured and recovering, so it's different. And it's just the fact that you don't draft Loveland over Tyler Warren without having a plan already in place because they're 2 entirely different players. Warren is much closer to George Kittle, looks for contact, a very violent player who also loves to get in the blocking game. Colston Loveland is so fluid and agile and works primarily as a slot receiver more than anything. So it's probably a lot more trust than others in Ben Johnson, but I do believe they drafted Loveland with a plan in mind for him from week 1. And I think that's why also the ETR ranks are quite high on Loveland ahead of ADP.
And that Jeremy Shockey call-out you had before, that's my comp for Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren reminds me so much of Jeremy Shockey, just never going to shy away from contact, going to look for it, and going to punish a linebacker or a safety that comes to try to tackle him.
If you don't have a plan for your tight ends yet, you can get going with the draft simulator. Try them all out. Go with the high tight ends. Maybe there's one of those middle guys like a Kelsey you want to get, or you got to play around with your favorite combination or what that version of the late tight ends are, or any other position. You can master your draft strategy by testing it out in minutes by using FantasyPros Draft Simulator. The Draft Simulator allows you to practice quick and fun, realistic mock drafts based on your league settings in minutes. You can use the cheat sheets in there of multiple analysts, or you could just pick overall ECR. Sync your league for free and try it out today at fantasypros.com/mock, or you can download the Fantasy Pros Football Draft Wizard app. Start mocking today, test those strategies, and get ahead of the game. Let's talk about some quarterbacks. Our late round quarterback, that's the best. That's the best feeling. If I don't get Lamar Jackson or value on Joe Burrow, let's just go play the end, especially if you're playing in like a 12-team league. Late round quarterbacks, late round draft steals, targets for you guys. You teased it a little bit earlier, John, so we are talking about him. I just talked about him with Fitzy, of course. Your sleeper late draft quarterback is Drake Maye.
It is Drake Maye, and to be clear, I like a lot of late round quarterbacks this year, but that's only because since we're playing the stock market, everyone who performed poorly last year despite having high ADPs is now being drafted later because, again, everyone prioritizes incorrectly last year's points. CJ Stroud, for example, was a QB6 in ADP last year. Now everyone leaves him for dead from the 12th round on. So it's very easy to get, in my opinion, a top 12 quarterback in the much later rounds this year. The one player, though, I will not allow anyone to take credit for, myself included, whenever he's a QB1, is Drake Maye, because it's all too obvious. In his 10 full starts last season with the Patriots, an extra 4.2 rushing points provided weekly for us, and this offensive line that ranked 31st in ESPN's pass block win rate then went out under Mike Vrabel and signed veteran right tackle Morgan Moses, former Viking center Garrett Bradbury, and drafted stud left tackle out of LSU Will Campbell at number 4 overall, not to mention upgrading the receivers with both Stephon Diggs and Kyle Williams. So all the stars align against the third projected softest schedule in the league for the Patriots to once again come out and have immense success with Drake Maye.
Bugs, I know you've probably heard Drake Maye's name every other episode with Fitzy, and I just did a short. We were talking about it. The rushing equity, it is an absolute real thing, and I think Drake Maye and Justin Fields seem to be the two guys that are really in our faces about that. But Drake Maye doesn't have the equity as far as ECR goes that Justin Fields have. So what do you think about this pick?
Let me just tell you how much I've heard about Drake Maye from Fitzy during the offseason and Dynasty stuff, is that he, in Dynasty rankings, he's right next to Bo Nix. And obviously I did those first because we had to have them for the show this season post-draft. But I was so high in my mind on Drake Maye because of Fitzy talking so much. I was like, how is he a late round? Then I went to look at his Dynasty versus his actual 2025 ECR. It's so much lower in 2025. So I just had him as like close to a borderline QB1 in my brain, but he's like QB 16 or something in ECR. He's fairly low down there. So yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I think he's going to have a ton of value. And could you death by 1,000 cuts him? Sure, you could. You could say, hey, look, they're adding Travion Henderson. They still have Ramondre. Maybe he's not going to run as much as possible. Is Stephon Diggs going to play? Like, there's ways you can knock Drake Maye, but I think he has the legs. He's just such a good QB, and he's a good leader, too. Improved offensive line, improved defense as well. Like, everything's better in New England and coaching staff. So I don't know how he doesn't get better. It would be very surprising.
Fun fact on the ECR ranks, I'm taking a look here. There are 17 quarterbacks that make up 3 tiers. So there's just the tiered quarterback play. There's 4 in tier 1, there's 4 in tier 2, and there's this big old clump of tier 3 that goes down to 17. You were correct, Drake Maye is quarterback 16. The fun fact, though, is only 2 quarterbacks on those top 17 have a strength of schedule rating of a 5-star or better, according to FantasyPros. One is who I mentioned, Justin Fields, and the other is Drake Maye, both with the rushing upside. Justin Fields, though, is now quarterback 10. Drake Maye is 16. So a very good pick here. Boggs, you have in theory, is a rookie quarterback, a second-year quarterback that is also a pretty popular name, probably a very popular super flex pick, but you're going to put him as a late-round target that people need to be paying attention to.
J.J. McCarthy, I mean, this one, I try to give different names. I've done a lot of sleeper shows in the last month or 6 weeks or so. So I'm trying to give a little different names, but J.J. McCarthy is just such a constant to me. And like John said, and like you said, Welsh, too, with the grouping and how they're doing the quarterbacks, like, there's a lot of value here late at QB. It's fairly deep this year, even in a super flex. It's pretty strong. Once you get past 24, 25, 26, it gets really ugly. But it's fairly deep there. And J.J. McCarthy, just to me, I mean, just think about what Sam Darnold's career was like before going into Minnesota with all those weapons in Kevin O'Connell, right? Here's his QB finishes before. 27, 27, 29, 28, 36, and then he didn't do anything with the Niners, and he finished 55th overall. He was QB 9 with the Vikings last season, and that was with them running the ball historically more than Kevin O'Connell has because Sam Darnold wasn't expected to be the quarterback the entire season. So I think that J.J. McCarthy dropping in here, I think that he can have a similar season to what Sam Darnold did, maybe not 9, but put him in the top 12 to 15 and add his rushing potential on top, coming off a knee injury. Maybe it's not as much as we think, but it's definitely in there and way better than Sam Darnold last year, even coming off an injury for J.J. McCarthy. I just think the sky is the limit for this dude. There's so much insane amount of upside for J.J. McCarthy that it makes him a viable risk down here, especially in a 1 QB league where there's going to be QBs on the wire. You can easily take this risk and draft J.J. McCarthy. Yeah,
John, QB 20 in ECR with wide receivers of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Hawkinson as your tight end, and
Aaron
2
Jones
running backs.
That's
exactly right.
Running backs, and they drafted Ty Felton.
That's where I was going. Aaron Jones is great receiving out of the backfield, and Jordan Mason can play both of those. Does quarterback 20 match up with those pieces around him?
For sure. Someone I'm interested in that late round range. We didn't even talk about how And if you just mentioned this, I'm sorry that I missed it, but how they bolstered their offensive line and kind of came into the offseason making it a priority to make life easier for J.J. McCarthy and signing both Ryan Kelly and Will Fries and drafting Donovan Jackson as well. So it seems like
Darisaw coming back.
It seems like all the emphasis is on just helping J.J. McCarthy ease into the NFL and making life easier for him to be more efficient this year.
All right, if everything we've talked about has been more late round draft steals to you and you don't want to accept sleepers and stuff like that, that's fine. That's totally okay. Because now we're going to dig really deep. These are deep sleepers. Each one of these guys have picked a wide receiver, a running back, and we are going to play a super flex quarterback. So this is going to be like a late quarterback that's not going inside, let's say, the top 24. So McCarthy is not going to qualify. Maye is not going to qualify. So these are deep sleepers, and I'm going to allow you guys just to go through your three. So John, let's start with you. Wide receiver, running back, and super flex quarterback, deep sleepers. Who do you have for us?
Wide receiver, I'm sticking with this Packers subject we've been talking about, and I'll go back to Dontayvion Wicks, who even in what I consider to be the worst waiver wire year ever, Dontayvion Wicks still somehow let us down despite leading the Packers in targets. Having said that, if you look without Christian Watson last year, Wicks still led the team in being targeted on 29% of his routes. So that's mine. Do you want me to continue rattling off my players here or let Boggs chip in?
No, keep going.
Okay, cool. For running back, I'm going deep, and this is very, very deep. I had to scroll down. I had to scroll down the FantasyPros rankings, and that is Will Shipley, who is Saquon Barkley's direct backup after the team allowed Kenneth Gainwell to walk for only $620K guaranteed from the Steelers. Even then, they said, we don't need you back. We have Will Shipley. And this is going to be discussed a lot this offseason, but I do want to mention that there is an easy path for Saquon Barkley to fail at draft expectations at first or second overall in your home league, just because he does have this historic 482 touches, if you include the postseason, under his belt from last year. And everyone mentions DeMarco Murray. That's the last guy who handled 400-plus touches and then became absolute dust. But I don't even include that. I'll just go back to the last four running backs in 2017. So we have 2017 Le'Veon Bell, 2019 Christian McCaffrey, 2020 Derrick Henry, and 2022 Josh Jacobs. The last four players to handle at least 390 touches. And the following year, the next time they played football, they collectively averaged 0.9 fewer yards per carry and 2.4 fewer fantasy points per game. Like, it had just obviously worn them down the next time they suited up. So I am slightly worried about Saquon Barkley at ADP so early. And then for Superflex leagues, because everyone's trying to dig deep, I don't even know if I like this pick, to be honest, but I know that Saints rookie Tyler Shuck is going to start, if only because his quote-unquote competition and Spencer Rattler already got benched for Jake Haener just last year. And regardless of what we think about Tyler Shuck, we don't know anything about the situation since this is the first time Kellen Moore will be a head coach. He is an offensive-minded guru. And again, we haven't seen Shuck play at all what is against the third easiest passing schedule. I'm sorry, the league's easiest passing schedule based on last year's numbers for the Saints. So I cross my fingers, close my eyes, and say, Tyler Shuck, you're a QB3 in Superflex leagues, and let's hope for the best.
Boggs, of these three, I think you might have already kind of given it away. If you could only pick one that you're really, really into, who's your pick?
I mean, it's definitely Will Shipley. This is the second time I feel like I've heard Will Shipley's name, and the first time was me calling him out because of this exact situation. If you go and look at the depth chart, like A.J. Dillon is in there. A.J. Dillon is dust. Will Shipley is definitely the number two here in Philly. So, and, you know, John mentioned it, the crazy amount of touches. I mean, Will Shipley is the most obvious non-Isaac Guerendo handcuff that there is. So if you have the bench space, so you're rostering Saquon, you need to roster Will Shipley just in case, because, you know, if anything does happen to Saquon, Will Shipley, everyone is blowing out their fab budget to get him because he's the running back behind the best offensive line in the league.
I'll tell you, I love the Dontayvion Wicks one. You might be shocked with everything he broke down. He's wide receiver 76 in ECR. He's the lowest by a wide margin of all the Green Bay wide receivers. And I don't think anyone could comfortably stare at that wide receiver core and be like, oh yeah, that's the guy that's going to dominate and run away with things. So I think that's a really slick one. Boggs, that takes us to you. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback, deep sleeper names. Run us through them.
All right, I got a couple rookies for you. I'm going to start with Pat Bryant, the rookie wide receiver out of Illinois, going to Denver. And this is a weird situation, right? I know Fitzy loves Marvin Mims. Our boy Jake Seeley loves Devon Vele. I love Pat Bryant. It's because watching him in Illinois, possession type of a guy, big body guy, can win a contested catch. It's the motor. I think the motor is going to keep him on the field. This dude loves to run block, and you do a lot of that under Sean Payton. Sean Payton compared him to Michael Thomas. We're getting a little Pollyanna Payton here, almost like Pete Carroll, where everyone is the best player that he's ever seen, that he talks about to the media. So we have a little bit of that with Sean Payton, but I'm really excited to see what Pat Bryant can potentially do in this Broncos offense, because they need a number 2 next to Cortland Sutton. They don't really have one right now. They're trying to find one. Evan Ingram, Debro likes a lot. It's just this situation is ripe with opportunity for somebody to come away with more touches. Let's go with Tahj Brooks, the rookie running back out of Texas Tech, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. They just don't have anyone else behind Chase Brown. Chase Brown is a dude that can handle a heavy workload. He did it at Illinois. He did it last season with Cincinnati, but he is a little bit undersized to be doing that. I think Tahj Brooks is a very, very good and capable 3-down back that can be backing up Chase Brown in any situation. He can pass block. He can catch the ball. He can carry the workload. So Tahj Brooks is another good guy with not a lot of competition in him to earn carries behind a breadwinner there in Chase Brown. And my quarterback, look, I'm just going to go back to the well. I think he's being written off by everybody right now. It's Anthony Richardson. Yes, he really had trouble with the forward pass, which is the only thing you have to be able to do as a quarterback. The rushing upside is insane. If Anthony Richardson starts 17 games, he's a QB1. I don't know if he's going to start any games this year. Daniel Jones is looking pretty good, but I also think if you're the Colts, and if you're Chris Ballard, and if you're Shane Steichen, and if you hitched your wagon to Anthony Richardson, what do you report? You say, well, I don't know about Richardson now, and you let him be the hero. I'm throwing up air quotes now on the video, and come back and push away Daniel Jones to the side and emerge victorious, and you feed his ego and his confidence into the season. I think we're seeing a little bit of that potentially right now. Could it be Daniel Jones starting week 1 and Anthony Richardson does nothing? Yes, but he still has enormous upside. So if I can get him as a QB3, you know what? Pair him and Tyler Shuck together in your Superflex leagues and come away. You have one floor guy because we know Shuck is starting, and one insane high guy in Anthony Richardson if he should get on the field. So that's my group.
John, Pat Bryant, Tahj Brooks, Anthony Richardson. You pick one of Boggs' deep sleepers. Which one's your favorite?
It's Tahj Brooks, just because I don't know Cincinnati's intention with Chase Brown. Yes, he was good last year, but he really walked into an RB1 role only because Zach Moss, who was brought back for less than $1 million guaranteed, so not even a guarantee to be on this team's roster in week 1. But he became that RB1 once Zach Moss suffered that serious neck injury. But if you look at all his advanced, like, broken tackle numbers, explosiveness, he actually was below average in that department. He just was a top 12 running back for fantasy because he got 5.5 targets and 24 touches per game. Because touches are the only skeleton key for fantasy football. It's just a matter of us doing our jobs projecting for touches. So will he still get those touches and then be a top 12 running back and honestly a value in the 3rd round? Probably, but I can't guarantee that. I don't know. So Tahj Brooks is at least a last round leverage option against Chase Brown.
So many great names, so much great information. I know you guys have enjoyed. If you're looking for more targets, looking for more sleepers, check out the Fantasy Pros Draft Kit, fantasypros.com/kit, where we've got tons of free info on there. We've got some premium subscription, or just, the premium side of it, articles on some of like Fitz's targets. I just actually put my targets up there. Perfect draft. There's so much great information, plenty free, some premium stuff. Go and check it out today, fantasypros.com/kit for more steals steals, and more targets. Also, make sure to go check out John Daigle at not J Daigle, if I can get that correctly, and check him out over on the Establish the Run podcast. Check out Bogman, of course, at Bogman Sports, and right here on Fantasy Pros. And if you dare, you can follow me at Is It The Welsh and all the stuff we got going on here. Be on lots of these podcasts in season. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, Bogman and John. It was fantastic. You guys killed it. And if you have a favorite draft target or sleeper that you love from this episode, drop it in the comments below. Looking to highlight and see who you guys loved. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube and podcast. And we will talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.